Hey guys, welcome to the rundown. Well, this week has been quite a busy week, and so busy in fact that I wasn't able to get a video out to you on my main channel this past Wednesday, and I felt kind of bad about that. Well, the job that I'm doing right now has given me an opportunity to share with you a quick and simple project on a jig. Now, we all know what an angle finder is. It is a simple tool that allows you to find odd angles that you normally wouldn't be able to find with, say, something like a speed square or a simple shop square. Well, the angle finders are great, however, in some applications they're just not quite big enough. And that's what I've run across with this particular angle finder. The job that I'm doing is building a corner bench for the inside of a corner shower. And what I need to do is determine the angle of the shower walls, because in most applications, homes with settling and everything, the walls aren't exactly, square or 90 degrees, and there could be a little bit of variance. Well, an angle finder is perfect for that because it allows you to find the angle of that inside corner, and then you can take that angle and transfer it to your project and make sure that everything fits nicely. Well, this particular angle finder is a little bit too small. So Robert Ross, the owner of Woodcrafting Woodworks, allowed me to borrow his large oversized shop angle finder that he uses for quite a few applications, and one application is for like what I'm doing, finding the inside corners of a wall that I need to build something on, or say for instance if I was building a corner cabinet or something and I needed to take the angle of the walls and transfer that angle over to my project. Something this size really wouldn't give me an accurate reading on what I need, but something this size would do perfectly. Now, the overall length of this is about 46.5 inches, and since I can't keep this is Robert's, I decided I'm going to make one for my shop and be able to use for future projects along with the project I'm doing now. So as I build this, I was going to take you through the steps and show you how to make one. So for my angle finder, I'm going to use a piece of 1x6 oak that I have laying around the shop. It's about 33 inches long, but I'm not going to need that much length. I think I'm going to cut it down to about 24 inches. And I'll be able to cut the 3 parts that I need out of this one board. So what I need to do is go ahead and set up the fence on the table saw for 1 3/4. That way I can make my rip cuts and get 3 pieces of 1 3/4 wide stock out of here. So a quick measurement change, so I could get all 3 pieces out of the one 1x6. My pieces are actually 1 11/16 inches thick. And I've got them all ganged up together, and I've got a mark to cut them all to 24 inches in length. Okay, for Robert's angle finder, he simply got everything hinged together with a wing nut, a bolt, and a washer. And he's got it rabbeted here on the 2 end pieces that he has glued together to make up the main arm. And then the center arm is able to pivot in any direction. So when he has the angle that he needs, he just locks it down and then he can transfer that to his workpiece. Well, that's exactly what we need to do with our 3 oak pieces that we just cut. We need to go ahead and make a rabbet on 2 of the pieces, so that the 3rd piece will be able to fit in there. And then we'll go ahead and round everything over, get our hole drilled through all 3 pieces so everything lines up, and that way we can have a nice hinging piece. Before we bolt everything together, of course, after we get the rabbets cut in, we need to go ahead and glue 2 of these pieces together to make up the main arm. So in order to determine where our mark for our rabbet needs to be, I'm simply taking the one arm and I'm going to lay everything to where it's nice and flush at one end, and when it's set I'm going to go ahead and mark the other side. This will give me a reference line to where I need to cut my rabbet, and since I'm not going to plane down my center arm, I'm just going to leave it 3/4 of an inch. We need to take 3/8 of an inch off of each of the 2 pieces to create our opening for that center arm. So we'll go ahead and get set up on the table saw sled to get those cuts made. So now I have my blade height set to just a little bit more than 3/8 of an inch, just to give it a little bit of room to move. And I've got a stop block set up to where my rabbet needs to stop. With those two things set in place, I can go ahead and make my cut. So now that I have my two rabbet cuts, I can go ahead and glue these two pieces together. To make the rounded over end so the corners don't catch when the arm pivots and everything, I could simply just hand draw this and just kind of guesstimate, or I happen to have a scrap piece of 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 piece of pipe. I'm just going to lay it on there, get it centered up, and trace it out. And from there I can go ahead and sand that down to that profile, and it should work perfectly. I've got a little glue squeeze out on this glue up here, so I'm just going to take a basic scraper and peel it away. So now I'm going to take my center arm that's already rounded over on one end, and I'm going to lay it on top of this glue up, get the edge nice and flush, and then trace out that round over, the diameter of that round over. So now I can go ahead and take this over to my drum that I've got inside my router and clean it up. Now I can take a simple shop square that I have and get everything lined up, make sure that I have 90 degrees on both sides when everything is open and closed. That tells me I'm in the right position for my arm. Now I can go over to the drill press and drill all three pieces at one time. So I happen to have some of these knobs that already have a 1/4 inch bolt built into them. So over here at the drill press, I'm going to use 3 different bits to drill this hole. The first bit is going to be so that this part of the knob can sink down into the wood a little bit. The second bit will be a 1/4 inch bit for the threads. And then the third bit that will allow me to drill a hole for the nut to fit into, and the nut will fit snugly enough that it won't move. And for the hole on the other side where the nut goes, I'm just going to drill a shallow hole, just enough to catch that nut. So now I just went ahead and put the bolt in there just temporarily so I could see how well this is going to move and everything. And I've got a little bit of binding right here at the inside of the rabbet, right on this back side. So rather than taking a little bit more off this round, I'm just going to take a file and file this rabbet down just a little bit so it clears. There's just a little small hang up. So we'll go ahead and get that cleaned up. So now after a little bit of filing, I can go ahead and take my nut on the other side and... Alright guys, well once I got that nut set into place in that undersized hole, pretty much locked it into place, so I don't need to really epoxy it in there. It's going to stay by itself, but you can epoxy it if you'd like. I've got my knob in there with my bolt, and I've got my angle finder done. I've got a good range of motion in both directions. So now, anytime I need to find an angle for an outside or an inside corner, and I need an angle gauge this big, all I need to do is set my angle gauge into that corner, lock it down, and I can transfer that angle to my workpiece. So there you go guys, pretty quick and simple, and it's going to be a useful jig in the shop. So that's the rundown on an oversized angle gauge. Until next week, see you soon.